I am going to record it. I think I am recording. Okay, let's hope technology works for us. There's all, as I said, there are 5 people in the house and everyone's using the internet. So let's hope we don't crash and burn. Okay, I'm going to have a drink. So, welcome to Open Mic Night number 72.
Yay!
Now, before we, someone else is here. Before we start, I'm just going to welcome Pamela. Hi, Pamela. Can you hear me? Pamela is there. I don't know if Campbell's there or not. I can see a Campbell. Anyway.
Yes, Campbell's here. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. That's fine. And it's fine if we can't see everybody, but I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Now, you will notice if you hover over your own self on screen, there is a mute button. Now, while people are reading, I would really appreciate it if you remember, it's not, you can't always remember, but to mute yourself. But when they finish, unmute yourself and give them a round of applause as if we were in the room together. We want to make lots of noise, okay? If you're used to sign language, you can go like this, because that's how they clap, you know, that's how people with hearing impairment clap. But we want to try and make it feel like we are in the room together if possible, okay? Now I have my little list here of people who are reading. I'm gonna mix it up. So I obviously don't actually know what you're all reading. I might have a bit of an idea if I know you. For instance, some might be doing poetry or some might be doing memoir and things like that. But it will be a little bit different. Normally I have a good idea of what people are reading and I will change it depending on that. So it's going to be a little bit of a mix up, which I think will be fine. And if there's a particular, if you hover down the bottom of the screen, there's like a little chat symbol. So if you want to send me a message privately, you can actually just choose me and you can type something in there. If you're having an issue with something or if you've got a question for me, please do that. Other than that, let's just enjoy ourselves. And I am going to have a timer. That's the boring bit. Stopwatch, no timer. So as I said, everyone has 5 minutes. Obviously, if you're just reading poetry, you might have a couple of poems and it might only be a couple of minutes. That's fine. It's not like you have to fill the 5 minutes. So, yes, I'm just seeing who else isn't here on my list. All right, maybe they'll come. They might be having tech issues. Pamela, can you hear me? Don't know if Pamela can actually hear me. Her camera is off. Let me see if she can start. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with, who will I start with? Shell, are you going to read? Oh, where'd Shell go? Are you reading, Shell?
Hello, yes, I am going to read.
Are you happy to go first?
Oh, I'm not really happy to go first, but I'll go first.
Okay. All right. You've got the floor.
Sorry?
You have the floor.
I'm reading from a memoir by my friend Sandy, who I'm helping ghostwrite her memoir. This is a snippet from a chapter called Cheated. I'm very nervous. We chose to settle in Auckland rather than go back to our hometown of Brisbane. Bob, this is the husband, got a good job working for a motorworks company. I was doing manufacturing modelling, and by now both the boys were at school. We bought a new car and built a brand new house, and I made it lovely. By now I felt that Bob and I had done a lot of growing up together, and in a way I felt we'd made it, materialistically, as parents and as a couple. On a deeper level, in the years since my marriage at just 16, I had found peace within myself about the things I felt I'd missed out on, like a big wedding, a chance to explore the world on my own, and time to be a young person without responsibility. I continued to live my life by my mother's advice to married life, wearing a nice dress, having the house clean, and the children settled to Bob when he arrived home. But having it all and playing the role of a good wife was no guarantee, as I was about to find out. It was just before Christmas, and Bob's work threw a Christmas party at a local hall. I was wearing a white cotton printed dress, sleeveless and cut just above the knees. I paired it with a pair of high-heeled sandals and looked a picture of summer. I remember a moment when I was standing in the hall looking around for Bob through the crowd of his colleagues and their wives and seeing him standing with a young woman. There was something in the way they stood, something that didn't quite look like polite conversation with a colleague. There was something flirty, something intimate. Maybe their faces were too close while talking. Maybe it was the absence of a drink in their hands. Maybe I caught Bob curl his hand around her elbow. Whatever I saw between them liquefied the muscles in my legs. I wobbled like jelly across the hall, and when I reached Bob, the girl had moved on. I started to feel something wasn't right. Every evening when Bob walked through the front door from work, I would think something was different, but shoot it out of my mind, telling myself, "Don't be silly, he's just been working hard." However, the feeling persisted, and finally, I felt I just had to ask, "Are you seeing someone?" "Yes," was his reply, just like that. "Who?" I asked. "Oh, you don't know her," he replied. "You need to make a decision. Is it her or me? If it's her, then you go," I said. "I'll fix it," he said. But he didn't. A few weeks later, his work held another function. Everyone at the workplace knew about his affair with the 18-year-old office girl, Mandy. So when the party came up, Bob planned to attend with his girlfriend. When I asked if the other wives were going, Bob said no, but I found out they were, so I told him, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. "I'm taking Mandy," he told me matter-of-factly. "Then we'll all go together," I said just as plainly. "Okay," said Bob. So that's what we did. We took the family station wagon because the work ute couldn't accommodate the three of us. Bob and I travelled from our family home to Mandy's parents' house on the other side of Auckland Bridge and picked her up. When we arrived at the function, the room was already full with Bob's workmates and their wives, so we entered into a cloud of smoke, cigarette smoke and chatter. As I walked in, Mandy on one side, me on the other, and Bob in the middle, the swirling smoke seemed to fill as every single person spun around to take in the sight of the threesome at the door. The chatter broke. I was wearing a smart summer dress and looked model perfect, but in that moment, I felt naked, exposed, and humiliated. The muscles in my legs jellified again. I steeled myself, reimagined the wooden floor as a catwalk, and strode over to one of the wives I knew and held my head up high.
That's 5 minutes, Shell.
I'm just about done. There's 2 more sentences. It was not a good day. It was not a good Christmas, but I wasn't going to stay at home sidelined. I wasn't going to spend another day leaning on a broom sobbing and feeling sorry for myself. True story, by the way.
Well done, Shell.
Yay!
Shell, I don't know why you are always nervous, because you're actually a really good reader.
I know she read that very well.
Yeah.
So
So well read.
Fun.
Like the delivery and the inflection at the emotional points.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Shell. What I didn't actually think about, Shell's got her wine. What I didn't think about was how to let people know time is up. Could everyone hear the buzzer going then?
Yep.
So what I thought I might do is I might put it at like 4 minutes 50 seconds, and then that gives you a bit of time to wrap up the set, you know, like the paragraph or something. Is that work okay for people? All right, Paula.
Need to put that on first, don't I?
Yes. So welcome, Paula. What are you going to read tonight?
Short story.
Cool.
Called The Waif Wanderer.
Great. Thank you.
Mary Fortune, the big burly fellow behind the wooden slab counter, boomed at her. She nodded her head and instantly regretted doing so. Drums pounded away in the cotton wool world of her brain. Born 1833. She did not nod this time, just watched his image divide and slide back into one. Lock her up with the other slags. A night in the cells will sober her up. She really wanted to tell him he had made a terrible mistake, just like all those other times. Didn't he know who she was? But the words she needed would not form and remained locked away somewhere in her brain. Come on, Mary. A young constable took hold of her arm and led her through a heavy door back to the cells. You know, Mary, you should lay off the grog. Stick to your writing. You do better at that. She wondered how he knew about that. No one knew she was a writer. The passageway tilted on its side and Mary's shoulder smacked into the blue stone wall. She could feel herself sliding down when the constable grabbed the back of her coat and pulled her upright. He took a large key ring from his belt and selected one of the keys to unlock the door. In you go, Mary. He gave her a gentle shove. She stumbled into the cell. You've got company, ladies. Clang. The door slammed shut and the key clunked as it turned in the lock. Mary stood with her back to the door, waiting for her eyes to adjust to the darkness. She squinted as she picked out a wooden bench running along one side. The bench was crowded with women. A couple of others sat on the floor, their backs pressed against the other long wall. The far left corner appeared empty. She would sit there, away from the riffraff. Clunk. A foot hit a hard object. It sloshed and she realised it was the toilet can. The smell of urine and faeces slithered out from under a wooden board balanced on top of the can. Hey, watch what you're doing. We don't want that all over the place. Mary backed away from the can and joined the women sitting on the floor. Who be you? A voice came from the bench. I'm the waif wanderer, Mary replied. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to mute.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd be a leprechaun.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't. Jack, you're noisy. I don't know what's happening there. Sorry, Paula.
That's okay. Okay. I'm the waif wanderer, Mary replied. Yeah, and I be a leprechaun. You can't be a leprechaun, another woman from the bench said. I can. I'm little and I'm Irish. You're not a man. You don't go having no beard. The cell erupted into laughter. Well, I be a banshee, another woman helped out. Yeah, that be it. I be a banshee. Again, cackling laughter echoed around the cell. Mary felt like she was in the middle of a witch's coven. Their conversations turned away from Mary to one of Irish folklore. I've heard of the waif wanderer, the young woman next to her said in a quiet voice. He writes them detective stories in the journal. That's me, Mary said. But you ain't a man. No, I ain't a man, Mary whispered. If she was a man, she could write under her own name. she thought.
Please, I pray to the gods, Papa Titian, please. The water like the food, like the food.
Sorry, I'm actually. Sorry, I've actually removed that person because I don't know who it is. And
It's
I
a troll intruder. It's a trolling intruder.
Yeah, I've actually thrown him out. So
Thank you.
Good.
sorry, Paula.
Okay, hang on a tick. I've got to figure out where I was.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I've heard of the waveform. Oh no, I've read that bit, haven't I? No, I ain't a man, Mary whispered. If she was a man, she would write under her own name, she thought. How do you know about my stories? My mistress used to read them to me. She was teaching me to read. So what happened? How come you are here? Mary's brain was beginning to clear and think like a journalist's again. The mistress found out the master was having his way with me. She kicked me out. Mary heard a sharp intake of breath as the woman continued. A girl has to live. No one else would take me in, so at least I get a feed here, and they don't rough me up. They sat in silence as the room slowly descended into sleep, silent except for the occasional snore or word uttered unknowingly. Mary's head dropped to her chest as she too drifted off. Hey! Mary's head shot back up and smacked into the wall. Hand was pulling on her arm. Why don't you get that detective to come and get you out of here? What? Mary mumbled, trying to make sense of what was going on. That detective of yours. Detective Mark Sinclair, Mary supplied. Yeah, that's the one, Detective Sinclair. Why don't you get him to get you out? He's not Mary said no more. Maybe the constable was right. She should stick to her writing. She was good at it. People believed her. She wasn't so good at drinking. She leaned back and said, yes, maybe in the morning. She closed her eyes. Maybe he can get us both out, the hopeful voice beside her whispered. Maybe, Mary mouthed. How could she tell this girl he was not real? Clang, clang, clang. Keys clattered across the bars of the door. Mary opened her eyes, then closed them again against the trickle of daylight coming through the high windows. She rubbed her neck. It was stiff. Her head pounded. Mary Fortune, you can go, you fortunate woman. The owner of the keys chuckled at his joke. Mary gently shook her head, aware that any sharp movement would cause it to explode. The door opened. Come on, Fortune. You leaving or what? Mary pulled herself to her feet. A hand tugged at her skirt. Don't forget to ask your detective to get me out of here. Mary reached down and touched the girl's hand. Sure, she said, and followed the constable who led her out into the drizzle of a gloomy Melbourne day.
Right. Thank you. You did well considering we had that instruction.
Well done.
I don't know what that is. Is that a thing? Do people actually do that? They come and troll things?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We've had intruders like that in classroom Zoom sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not nice.
You think people would have better things to do, wouldn't you?
You would.
Yeah. Okay. Sue Gunningham, are you ready to read? Yes? Yes?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So, hope this is going to be loud enough. This is the new stuff.
Well, sounds good.
Can you hear me?
That's fine, yes.
Okay, this is not a story, it's like a report. Yeah. Hopefully it makes sense by itself. It's called Kununurra, Western Australia, 2015. At Kununurra in the Kimberley region, I sit with 3 Indigenous women around an oval table. We've been brought together for me to present some workshops aimed at helping Indigenous people understand about money management. The 3 women have the title of money management workers, having done the task continuously, creatively and enthusiastically for more than 18 months in the region. The value they now place on knowing and understand about money management is evident in every stolen glance they cast in my direction. We talk about the price of bread. They decide they're being charged fairly at $4.20 a loaf, compared to another community where bread costs $4.50 a loaf. I shy away from telling them that I pay $1.50 for a generic loaf in Melbourne. They explain that after doing some local research, they've been able to explain to the locals the service station ATM doesn't belong to any of the banks in town. It costs $6 for each transaction at that machine. They've saved many people lots of money just by explaining this one fact. I share some stories about other Indigenous people trying to manage their money. A grandma whose savings take the form of collecting any money that falls from the washing. A family who worked together to buy a small boat so they could catch fish to sell. A lady who saved $2,000 to open a term deposit so her money would be locked away. Then she did it again and again and again until she had so many $2,000 deposits she qualified for a small housing loan. A community that bought 3 washing machines and wheelbarrowed them from house to house to save on laundromat fees. The management workers talk with pride about the number of families who've successfully organised their money so they can put something aside towards a no-interest loan. The first time for many of them they've ever owned a brand new fridge, freezer, washing machine, etc. We mellow towards each other, realising despite the difference in our skin colour, backgrounds and other traits, we're all on the same team. The words tumble out and wash between us about small steps and determination and prioritising and consequences for choices. I describe the menu of chocolate chips, peanuts and sweet biscuits served on the plane flying in, and we lament the disregard that this shows by the airline company for the high rate of diabetes in Indigenous communities. The women express concern. Can you hear that? Yeah. The women expressed concern the government seems to look after the needs of refugees arriving in Australia more than they do the Australian pensioners. I assume they're referring to the Indigenous tribal elders, and I'm ashamed when I realise they're talking about the pensioners in general, who they say have contributed so much to this country. I cringe in the hopes they haven't noticed my narrow-minded misunderstanding. We talk about Kathy Freeman and about setting goals and staying on target one small step after another. I show slides and we discuss how to make it clear no one gets enough money to buy everything they want. We all have to prioritise, make compromises, work to a budget, put money aside, stay focused, take control. At the end of the day, we're pleased with the concepts we've covered. That evening, the Prime Minister appears on all the news reports under a red banner that reads, "Spend, spend, spend." He celebrates giving many thousands of dollars in one-off bonuses to particular categories of welfare recipients. It's a stimulus package aimed at sending a surge of money through the economy as the world staggers under the pending collapse of the global financial crisis. Most of this community where the money management training is occurring will qualify for a bonus. Next morning, the money management workers are late coming to training. Issues regarding the staggered release of the one-off bonus payment, participants wanting to know what date their payment will arrive. The 4 of us are disheartened by the spend, spend, spend philosophy, how it contrasts with our money management messages. At the end of the day's training, I call into the local supermarket. The bottle shop displays large, crudely written signs stipulating daily maximum quantities of liquor people will be permitted to purchase in the coming week. At the counter, the salesperson laments the government bonus coincides with the annual land royalties payment of $6,000 per family, payable for allowing telecommunication poles to be erected on Indigenous land. The spend, spend, spend bonus plus the royalty payments means an average income of over $600,000 for this small town in 1 week. The police had met with the liquor store proprietors that morning and warned either the stores should set limits on the sale of alcohol or the police would take action to enforce limits. As I pull out of the shopping centre, I watch the police pick up a staggering drunk, and the first big spender is loaded into the back of a paddy wagon. Apparently the economy's stimulation has commenced.
Thank you. That's really interesting, actually. Thanks, Sue.
That was so good, Sue. Loved it.
Yeah. All right. Who's next? Kiara.
Hello.
Hi, Kiara. I like when people hear the name, they go,
Yeah, that was my reaction. Could you tell?
sorry, everyone's like that. It's okay for me because I can speak when I want. Hi, Kiara. How you going?
Good.
Tell us what you're going to read.
So just a quick little intro. I'm writing a self-help novel about relationships. So this is an excerpt from one of my chapters on the overzealous healer and the victim. So it starts with a little bit of a story, and then I'll go into a bit of an analysis towards the end. It should hit around the 5-minute mark there.
Cool.
Cool, thanks. So Betty's perspective. I'd been on the phone to Sandra for 2 hours trying to console her. This asshole who had picked her up knowing she was blind drunk probably told her he would do anything for her, then left and had triggered her back to her memories of her father. I'd known my whole life I wanted to help people, and this was no different when I saw Sandra in pain. My heart wrenched and I wanted to help her. Unfortunately, she'd had a lot of bad happen in her life, so she was in pain a lot, and our relationship had been like this for the past 3 years. Sure, we also had good times. What kind of best friends don't? But these were the times where I felt closest to her, the times I could help. Finally, we were wrapping up and Sandra was seeming more soothed. I could tell because we had switched into cracking a few jokes instead of dead seriousness. Forget him, Sandra. You can do better, I said. Okay, I will. Thanks for listening, Betty. I hanged up the phone thinking I'd done a job well done. My best friend was back on her emotional feet again. I felt a sense of happiness that I could help out. Sandra's perspective. I was out at some swanky bar in Fitzroy with a friend from work after talking to Betty for 2 hours yesterday. I'd gotten my confidence back to get back out there again and would not wallow anymore. Walking over to the bar to get my 4th drink, I stopped dead in my tracks when I locked eyes with Jay across the room. I was almost stunned for a second, not knowing how to proceed, when he flashed me that smile and came over. Can I buy you a drink? He said, not having taken his blue eyes off mine. I hesitated for a second, knowing that he'd just recently hurt me. But God, he was so hot in his grey suit, potentially having come straight from his corporate job in the city for after-work drinks, to be here of all places. Sure, I stammered. And Betty's voice was in my head saying, forget him. But I shrugged it off. I didn't need her advice. He was here in the flesh, buying me a drink. He wouldn't do that if he wasn't interested. Maybe I should have just given him more time to reply to my messages. It was a wild night, and of course I wound up back at his place, cuddling him in bed until the early hours of the morning. I felt so happy. He still wanted me. I couldn't wait to tell Betty how wrong she'd been. Betty's perspective. I got a phone call from Sandra in hysterics. Sandra, what happened? He has a girlfriend. She walked in when I stayed over at his house last night. Sorry, I think I missed something. Who? Jay, she said quietly, as if realizing her admission. I was shocked. Jay? I thought we decided to stay away from him. Well, that didn't happen, and now he cheated on her with me. I'm a homewrecker, Betty, exactly like how my parents divorced. I hate cheaters. They make me sick. It's all my fault, she sobbed. At the sound of her sobbing, I forgot my annoyance about Jay being back in the picture. It's not your fault. You didn't know. He's the asshole who put you in that situation. I know, but I should have known. But I was too drunk the night before to notice that there was a photo of them right in front of me in his house. I was so ashamed, I ran out of there. It was horrible. Oh, Sandra, you poor thing. That sounds horrible. This continued on for another few hours. There was a point where I was feeling a little out of my depth, so I suggested, how about we get you a psychologist to look into your past with your parents? She shot me down really fast. I don't think that'll help. Last time I tried, it was awful. Not knowing what else to do, I went over to her house to check on her and watch a movie to help take her mind off it. After that was done, I was driving home, but something was nagging at me. I realized it was the fact that we'd spoken about this earlier, about Jay not being a great person for her, and yet she still went ahead with him anyway, even though he was undoubtedly only going to hurt her. I wondered why she couldn't see it even though I'd pointed it out to her before, and realized that this has actually happened quite a few times in the past. A lot of her dating had ended up the same. The penny dropped and it hit me. I wasn't helping. The one thing I prided myself on every time I tried to help, it was like she couldn't hear me. It would always end up the same, and she would always be in tears and I would be picking up the pieces, but the cycle would just repeat. It was all pointless. So there was no real point in me helping anyway. I couldn't save her. She would inevitably end up in the same situation again, with or without me there. And then this is the analysis. A victim mentality is one of which there are no great outcomes. The focus is solely on bad parts of life. It's like a part of who someone is missing without the sadness and anxiety and overwhelm that they constantly feel. Complaining and looking for sympathy is a way of relating to other people. It is the only way for someone with victim mentality. For the victim, someone somewhere deep down in their past is trauma, and this experience taught them that having a sad story meant you got not only attention, but compassion and love from others. Somewhere, a parent who was usually absent gave them the time of day when bad things were happening, and this became a pattern of how they had learned to receive love. Victim mentality is a pattern of behavior, and with every pattern of behavior, it serves a purpose. Even our worst behaviors are giving us some sort of secondary gain. So our victim will seek out others to tell their stories to elicit the reaction of support from the other person. These people are often so focused on this that they are unable to give sympathy to others and can sometimes try to one-up other people. This is a coping strategy for trauma, a deflection mechanism where the real problem lies dormant and is covered up by the many other surface level problems, which are easier to talk about. The victim often doesn't even realize they're doing it. We can get addicted to this. By constantly having a new fire to put out in your life, you are deflecting the real problem, as there's no time for that. And the people around you are rallying for you so you don't feel so bad about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Laura.
Okay. Thanks, Blaze. Okay, so my name is Laura. My pronouns are she and her. And before I officially begin my reading, I just want to acknowledge that I'm coming to the open mic night tonight from the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded and treaty was never signed. So this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I am just going to read a few very short microfiction stories that I submitted recently for a competition run by Valid and Writers Victoria. So I just got to get the Word document up. Also, this way I don't need to see my face. Okay, so it's a series of 4 stories. And the prompt for each of the first line for each of them had to be, I look out my window. So, number 1. I look out my window on Monday to observe the dawn. Light spills over the sky, a gentle unfolding. The moon fades and the darkness recedes, making way for something new. There is hope in the uninterrupted rhythms of the world. This is a joy no pandemic can take away. 2. I look out my window on Wednesday, laptop balanced on my knees. It's the middle of the working week and already exhaustion has settled in my bones. Silence and loneliness are my only companions, until, through the open window, a gift. A child's laugh, a dog's bark, a balm. 3. I look out my window on Friday, yearning for the world before, for all the pleasures we've been denied. The postman rumbles to a stop, dropping letters and packages outside my door. A friend's familiar handwriting, her words a lifeline. Sudden eagerness for the many pleasures we're still to find. 4. I look out my window on Sunday, the sunshine calling my name. I stand, stiff legs protesting. It's time to move. I cannot go far or fast, but mine is a journey without expectations. Tie my shoes, fit my mask, walk. The world is still here, and so am I. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. That was good. Who else here likes using prompts to write? Anyone here? I know you do. I know Paula does. They are a good way of kind of warming up to something. Did you find that, Laura? Yeah? Cool. Oh, I better turn off there. Okay, who else have I got on my list? Aditya.
Yes.
I know I always say your name incorrectly, so can you say it for the group, please?
Nah, you're pretty close. So it's I pronounce it Aditya.
Aditya.
I'm just stressing on those sounds which are very Indian, so it's okay.
Yeah. So welcome to. Have you been to an open mic night before?
No, I haven't. It's
No?
like the first time ever, so it's interesting. Yeah.
And did I see a comedy picture on your screen before? Do you do
Yeah,
comedy?
I've been doing stand up for the last 1 year. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, to me, that's braver than anything. So I'm assuming this is not going to be as scary as trying to do comedy.
And trying to crack jokes which no one is laughing at. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
All
okay,
right.
cool. So I'll just try to read as far as I can go with this. It's an essay. I don't think I'll be able to finish it. It's titled C2H4N. Start quote. You see, sir, I can talk English, I can walk English, I can laugh English, because English is a very funny language. Bhairo becomes Baron and Baron becomes Bhairo because their minds are very narrow. In the year 1929, sir, when India was playing against Australia in Melbourne City, Vijay Merchant and Vijay Hazare were at the crease. Vijay Hazare told Vijay Merchant, look Vijay Merchant, this is a very prestigious match and you must consider this match very carefully. So considering the consideration that Vijay Hazare gave Vijay Merchant told Vijay Hazare that ultimately we must take a run. And when we were striking the ball on the left side, sir, the consideration became an ultimatum and close quote. In this scene from a 1982 Bollywood blockbuster movie, a young Amitabh Bachchan, arguably the most celebrated Bollywood actor of all time, is trying to convince a potential employer that although he is from a small Indian town, he can speak in English quite well. Or in his words, he can walk, talk, laugh in English. The legacy of English that the British left India after looting it for 200 years is a strange one. Since the time the British ruled India, it has been divided into a country of partial English speakers and the others who can speak fluent English. Of course, there are those who can't speak any English at all, but these are the poor Indians and for all practical purposes, they don't count. While a 14-year-old bus conductor in Delhi will casually use words like stop madam, ticket please, and sit down, he will always use Hindi for words like move back, move forward, motherfucker, sister fucker, daughter fucker, and so on. Whereas a 14-year-old boy studying in one of the expensive private schools of Delhi can easily walk, talk, and laugh in English. They say if you do anything for 28 days straight, let's say smoke a cigarette, then smoking becomes a habit. If you keep up the habit for several months, then you go from being Jim, who sometimes smokes, to Jim the smoker who has stinky breath. And do it for long enough and you turn into Jim the smoker with stinky breath and lung cancer. After 200 years of being ruled by England, English, which started out as a language spoken by a strange white foreigners who first wanted to buy our spices and then wanted everything else we had for free, had turned into the one thing that separated the intellectuals from the dumb, the educated from the illiterate, the cool from the uncool. I studied at a private school in the outskirts of Delhi, and like any self-respecting Indian private school at the time, it issued 10 rupee fines to kids who were caught speaking in any other language than English. While kids rebelled and broke the rule often, they made sure to follow up the rebellion with a string of well-constructed English sentences, lest they were confused with being one of those people. Those were the kids from government schools in India, from small towns and villages of India. Those were the unfortunate Indians, the partial English speakers. Not being labeled those was more tricky for some than it was for others. All it took was an incorrect pronunciation of toilet as to let, window as bhindo, or the more subtle restaurant as restaurant, and you were done for. Your reputation could also be ruined for no fault of your own. If your father pronounced a scooter as scooter, or your mother thought you were getting late for school, then it was only a matter of time before you were going to be labeled as those. Kids whose parents spoke fluent English walked into parent-teacher meetings with a confidence befitting English royalty. There was English, and then there was English with an accent. Any random middle-class Indian boy living in a big city could rip out a few sentences in English. But what only a handful of Indians could do was to speak in an accent. My cousin Amit, who was 2 years elder to me and the coolest person I knew, could not only talk in fluent English, but he could also produce a killer accent. No one was sure where that accent came from, but everyone who heard it was impressed. Girls would talk to him in English and blush in excitement when he said, "Sure, girl, we can be friends." He would be asked to perform the accent in front of guests. "Hello, uncle and auntie. It's a pleasure having you here." As the uncle and auntie sat there giving disappointed glances at their non-exotic son, I did try my best to mimic my brother's words, but failed as terribly as I did when trying to mimic his hairstyle. When he walked out with his hair combed, girls complimented him and boys asked him for tips on looking cool. When I walked out with my hair styled to the T, girls pointed out that there was something wrong with my head, and boys gave me suggestions on how to look cool, not to look like an idiot. When my brother spoke in an accent, girls were impressed and boys jealous. When I attempted an accent, both genders were equally amused. Only when I saw Apu from The Simpsons did I realize that we Indians had an accent of our own, an accent which for some reason sounded funny. When I first heard Apu's polite, "Thank you, come again," I laughed it off as a fake Indian accent. After all, I was in India and hardly ever heard anyone talk like that. But then I grew to dread the possibility that maybe we all sounded like that, and I couldn't tell because I sounded like that. Was this the reason why my brother Amit, with his accent, was considered cool because he did not sound like Apu while the rest of us did? After high school, I wasted a few years of my life and then decided to move to Australia. The excitement of the move got me till the Brisbane airport just fine. But as I was walking up to the immigration department, I was struck with the thought that these people down under might not understand my accent. What if the immigration officer refuses to understand a single word I say and asks me to go back to India? Or worse, what if he bursts out laughing, calls other immigration officers, and asks me to repeat what I just said? When asked about my reasons for coming to Australia, I decided to minimize confusion and replied, "Study." The concern accompanied me as I made my way to the city of Gold Coast, where I was to spend the next 2 years of my life. Faced with the possibility of being identified as an Apu, I stuck with one-word answers in the predominantly white city of Gold Coast. "How are you doing, mate?" "Good." "Hi, good morning. Are you ready to place your order?" "Eggs." "How are you going, mate?" "Bus." Sorry, was that the
Yeah.
alarm? Okay, cool. All right.
Great. That's really good. Thank you. Really good humor. I enjoyed that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
And you're right. English is a funny language. Definitely. Pamela, can you hear us?
Oh, what's happened?
Don't know if Pamela's there.
Sorry.
Can you hear me, Pamela? I don't know if you can hear me.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
Are you ready to read, Pamela?
yes, I'm fine.
Yeah. Can you?
Okay.
Are you able to turn on your camera, or you don't want to?
No, my camera's on.
We can't see you though.
I don't know what's happened.
Okay, that's okay.
As long as you can hear me.
Yep, that's fine. Tell us what you're going to read, Pamela.
Yeah, I'm writing a short story called The Third World War.
Yeah.
So this is like an introduction to it and goes into it.
Okay.
Great big wide beautiful wonderful world with wonderful waters around you curled. It's a line from a poem my mother used to recite to me when I was a child. She also explained I was a tiny dot in this world, and anyone can make a difference. Today our world has changed drastically. The present global pandemic has caused us all to think, and our world as we knew it has changed forever. But why did it happen, and what has history taught us? 4.5 billion years ago the Earth was formed, and 1 billion years later organisms emerged, including viruses. In East Africa, humans evolved from a natural process 200,000 years ago to be what we look like today. They spread throughout the continents, trading and dominating all other living species through their intelligence. Natural disasters have had devastating effects on the planet. Millions of years ago, when an asteroid hit the Earth and large-scale volcanic eruptions ensued, the dinosaurs were wiped out. In a mere 200 years, human sapiens have caused terrifying havoc and destruction on this delicate planet, our own. Industrialization opened a hole in the ozone layer, and natural forests were and still are being wiped out as greed to produce products for wealth became prevalent. Animal species have been wiped out, while others have lost their natural habitat. Mining for minerals has scraped the skin of the earth, leaving open wounds on the surface, which need millions of years to heal. Toxic fumes from factories have caused acid rain to pour upon forests in Europe and the atmosphere to be polluted. Megacities have risen up, and the chasm between the ultra-rich and the peasants has widened. Throughout history, war has occurred and always will. Ants are fearful warriors and defend their territory to the death. Humans are never satisfied, defending their land and always wanting more. But do they really know what they want? A person can only drive one car at a time, whereas a peasant is lucky to own a bicycle. Farmers in third world countries exist on a pittance and storm the cities searching for work without the skills to survive in our modern day culture. They produce many offspring they cannot feed or educate. The invention of plastic bags make life easier, but by dumping them on beaches and oil spills from ships, the oceans have become polluted, killing the fish. Large enterprises in trade have squeezed out small business from the market, leading to less competition and higher prices for the consumer. In recent years, government leaders and scientists realized we were slowly destroying our planet. Drastic plans were put into place. Recycle what we can to reduce landfill, minimize the use of plastic bags and grow more trees. But was it too little and too late? There have been many pandemics in the world. In the 14th century, the bubonic plague, known as the Black Death, was caused by infected rodents, such as rats, travelling on trading ships. It spread the disease throughout Europe, killing almost half the population. The plague of 1665 in England lasted for 2 years, causing 75,000 deaths, and those who weren't affected remained in their homes or left densely populated filthy areas to live in isolation. Fearing for his life, King Charles II escaped the disease in London by travelling to a country town and survived. In more recent times, the Spanish flu, as it was known, happened in 1918 after World War I. Soldiers from the battlefield were half dead and riddled with infection caused by the unhygienic living conditions in the trenches. Travelling to their homelands, they brought the contagious disease with them. It affected a third of the world's population, almost 500 million in 4 waves. By the end of the pandemic in 1920, between 50 and 100 million people were dead. SARS-3, which is similar to today's coronavirus, was an outbreak from China and was reported by the World Health Organization from November 2002 until July 2003. It affected 1 in 10 people and was able to be contained, but resulted in over 8,000 cases and 813 deaths. Late last year, an unknown coronavirus, now codenamed COVID-19. Okay.
You can finish your sentence.
Oh, okay. By scientists appeared in Wuhan, China, and was purported to have come from a wet market caused by bats. It spread like wildfire, mutating rapidly, infecting thousands of people and causing many deaths.
Thank you, Pamela.
Oh,
Yes, really well done. You're a good reader too. You're a good reader, Pamela.
oh, thank you. Maybe it's my English accent.
Maybe. Hi, Samuel. I'm glad that you could make it.
Yep.
Now, hi. We've got a couple more readers, and then you can read if you like, Samuel. I'm assuming you'd still like to read.
Yes, please. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. We might go to Marion Piers now.
Right. Can you hear me okay, Blaze?
Yes.
Is the volume good?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm reading tonight is an excerpt from a novel that I'm writing with Campbell's help, and which is why he's here.
Hi, Campbell.
Supporting me. And I've been writing about our ancestors. So tonight I'm reading an excerpt from the section about John Day, who was the Elizabethan printer and publisher. He was the Rupert Murdoch of his times, wealthy and influential, and a fervent Protestant. He found his life in danger when Bloody Mary came to the throne. So I'm setting the ancestors in context by creating a story around the known facts of their lives. The young King Edward died on the 6th of July, 1553. Mary quickly consolidated her power, and by the time of her accession to the throne, William Cecil had already left London. All his papers, plate and money went with him. John Day and his family followed them, leaving London in unseemly haste, with speedily packed trunks of clothing and papers relating to John's valuable patents, retreating to the village of Barholm in Lincolnshire. Alice Day was upset. No, she wasn't upset. She was frightened and not fully aware of why their lives were in danger. They had just travelled down from London at breakneck speed. The children looked up at her with huge round eyes, or whimpered hopelessly, clutching fiercely at a whistle or a whipping top or knuckle bones, toys they had snatched up quickly in their hasty retreat. In the carriage they had been jolted and terrified. They were cold and hungry. Gathering her children to her and folding her travelling cloak about her, she nestled into the woolen folds for comfort. She looked up at her husband, John, seeking answers, but not wanting to question his judgment. She drew the latest infant to her bosom and stroked her fuzzy head. He sat down with her and gently drew her to him. His strong frame had become muscular, as happens to young men in their 30s, making him look older and, Alice thought, wiser. His face had become thinner and more pronounced brow. His passion for her had not faded, though they were now 7 years older than when they married. She had married him partly for passion, it was true, but also because she needed a protector in the world. She had thought he would protect her well. He feared he might be about to disappoint her. Wife, dear, lovely Alice, I am going to have to disappear for a while. I have printed books which attack Catholic dogma, and our new Queen is a Catholic. I am in danger. If I am to continue to print books, which I must, and protect you, which I must, he paused uncertainly. Alice, I'm going to have to change my name. No, not change it. My name is my identity, my bond, my honour. I'm going to have to use an assumed name until we see what this new Queen is like, how she governs. William Cecil and I are going to continue to print books. There is even more need now for the Protestant voice to be heard across the land. You will not know where our print shop is or what we do. It's safer that way. I will still be your John Day, and you will still be my lovely Alice. But there will be a new printer called Michael Wood who will print books while I live here in quiet retirement with you. Why must you print books? Why must you print books which endanger us? She had wanted to ask, but she held her peace and said nothing. In her heart, she knew what his answer would be. I print books because it is what I do. I print books because I must. I print books because they disseminate ideas and shape opinion. I print books because there is nothing more important in the world. William Cecil had been right. As the mysterious new printer Michael Wood began his career, news began to reach the refugees from London, news of an alarming nature. The Princess Elizabeth, half-sister to Mary the Queen, had been imprisoned in the Tower. Nicholas Ridley, Bishop of London, had been arrested. Together with Thomas Cranmer, Archbishop of Canterbury, he had been indicted on charges of heresy. With unheard-of confidence, Mary moved against the highest in the land. A year passed, and the second summer of Mary's reign turned to autumn. Outside, an icy autumnal wind burned faces to a ruddy glow, presaging winter, and the hills wore fuzzy caps of white cloud. John's valuable patents, which he held from the crown, were revoked. Shocked and financially crippled, he became more and more remote, silent and distant. Alice became more and more fearful and sad. Was that the bell?
It was. You can finish this paragraph or sentence, whichever.
Yeah, okay. And finally, one day, as the yellowing leaves were drifting down from the oaks on a light wind and the smell of wood smoke hung in the air, John simply disappeared. And there we'll have
Very good place. That's a good place to end it. Keep us in suspense. Thank you, Marion. The time goes fast, doesn't it, when you start getting into the story? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kim.
Oh, yes. Hi. I've just got a flash fiction here that I'd like to read. Okay. Yeah. What was that? I don't know. An almighty crash as a cake tin hits the tiled floor below. It bounces and whirls round and round like a spinning top. Go and check it out. No, you go and check it out. Nina and Mark decide to check it out together. A spring in their creaky bed groans as they tumble out. They shuffle single file. Mark clangs into the closed door while Nina crashes straight into Mark. Careful. The pair tippy-toe down the stairs. Nina turns on the kitchen light. Oh, it's only Vladimir. The cat is perched in the only remaining space on the cluttered kitchen bench. The remainder is coated with discarded dinner dishes, dirty coffee cups, a ring of house and car keys, a Rubik's Cube, unopened mail and a box of tissues. With one outstretched leg in yoga pose and head down, the cat continues his important task of licking his nether regions. If you didn't leave such a mess, he wouldn't knock stuff down. Well, if you would help occasionally. They stare at each other, a silent truce. Come on, let's go back to bed. Nina pats a preoccupied Vladimir on her way past. They snuggle down under the warmth of the comfy doona. Mark's arm extends across Nina's waist. As they doze off, crockery smashes on the tiles. Metal on metal as bunch keys slide across the stone bench. A faint thud as they land on the floor. You better get up and put him in the laundry for the night. You put him out. Heads shoot upright from pillows like cannonballs. The familiar revs of their MX-5 in the driveway. The quiet night air is disturbed by the squeal of tyres.
Well done. That's really good.
Thank you.
A little bit of flash fiction. I don't think there's enough of it, actually.
Yeah.
I'm hoping at our short story competition that we might have had a few of those. I haven't actually seen any of the word lengths yet.
Yes.
So thank you for that, Kim. Who have we got Samuel, are you ready to read?
Yep.
Yep.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes. Yes, it definitely. It's my second novel that I've been writing, called The 2000th Seer. It's a horror / romantic, well, basically romantic horror, basically. This is chapter number 3, entitled Sasha, and it begins with our main antagonist, Evelina, after her diary entries in chapter 2, stating that, dear diary, I didn't leave the balcony window door was open.
Okay. Samuel, sorry, I meant to say, because you missed the start, everyone has 5 minutes to read. The timer goes for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. So when you hear the beep buzzing going, whatever you want to call it, you still can finish off, you still have 10 seconds or so. We're not really, precious about the time, but just to give you a bit of an idea. Okay?
Of course.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
The cold Italian night air billowed the ghostly white curtains around her slender frame. Inch by terrible step, Lena's shaking legs stumbled closer. Her trembling hands reached out quickly as her muscles could muster. The wind gushed through once again with tremendous fury. Of intense bitterness, she stopped for a second, with her frozen fingers positioned on the ornate handles of the oak, wooden, and glass French doors. Then, with a sudden loud crunch, the slam of glass as the doors lurched back and reverberated in their crude closure. Her dark reflection reverberated in and emitted a chill up her spine as she gazed at her petrified state of white and blue skin tones. Lena quickly turned on her toes and rested on the small backs of her biting wood that supported her small back. She placed both heels on the rich marble floor and positioned her slender fingers and palms on the haunting glass on either side of her. Her eyes slowly rolled down and the red darkness entered her state of calming being. She sighed and began to use her diaphragm to slow her heart palpitations. In and out, a gentle breath of oxygen allowed her to lower her abdominal and expand and contract with soothing her adrenaline. The surrounding darkness was quiet and peaceful, but exactly her other senses were not. She heard the constant drips of a substance not water-based, but thicker and more refined in its splattering consistency. The smell of oil and rotting flesh flared her nostrils, and slowly she pinched them together in a vain effort to cease the toxic odor. The effort of her eyes being closed became too much, and with a sudden jolt of light, the sound and smells that had influenced her were administered into sight. The hazy shape of a teenage girl with black, wet hair covered her entire face stood only 6 feet away from Evelina's position. She wore only a dark-stained hospital gown, and her skin appeared grey and almost as if grafted onto the whites and blues of her perturbing bones that jolted out in grotesque angles in the light shimmering translucency. Her razor-thin fingernails reminded Lena of 5 piercing needles, and the girl's feet were blackened with dry blood, dirt, and dark oiled substance surrounding her, with cold drip, drip, drips. Observing the black tar that hit the ground around, and the agonizing rhythms of omnipresent, relentless cruelty, Lena inched closer to the right of her wooden bed frame, casting her right hand and grabbing the hardened circular surface with as much strength as her arms could withstand. Once again standing on her toes, with her small heels in the void of air around her, she turned her back to the wooden frame and with trepidation slid her right toe as wide as she could to the other side of the bed's circumference, lightly feeling her shaking fingertips on the wood between her being and the bed, for her only possible line of escape was only seconds away. The creature in front of her vision slowly leaned forward, bending its spine in the process into a hunched position. Eruptions of loud cracking and popping emitted in the darkness of its movements, but no vocalized emotion came from the painful snaps. Only the overwhelming, loud, inhumane displays of movement that Lena had never witnessed. This caused Lena's spine to spasm and quake in pure blood-curdling, inconceivable terror. Her breath became erratic as she allowed her left toe to glide into her right and immediately placed her trembling heels into both positions. The unknown feed in front of her was undoubtedly listening to every new sound for its opportunity. That's the bell?
Yes. Sorry. You can finish your
Yeah.
If there's a paragraph, you can finish it.
For its opportune moment to strike. This wrecked on her mind endlessly of being engorged by the fingernails of the entity of fear.
Thank you. I love the way you read, Samuel. You should do book narration or something like that. Have you done?
Yeah, well,
have you done?
I've been trying to find, because it all involves, of course, experience, and I'd love to get into it, but yeah, it's finding the right connections, of course. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Okay, I think that's everyone on the list. Have I missed anyone who had their name on the list? I don't think so, no. For those of you who didn't put your name on the list, does anyone want to read something? No. Michelle, you are never lost for words.
I know, but
do you want to tell people about your book? Have you got a copy of your book in front of you?
Oh, I've got plenty of copies of my book in front of me. Which one?
Does anyone else want to read?
I've got Anna here too coming, so but on it's there. I've got two. I've got Conversations with Paul, which was my first book, and that's the journey of my late husband Paul and going through his cancer journey and me getting out on the other side. And then the second one is Traveling with Cardboard Paul, where I took a cardboard cutout of my late husband around the world and I wrote the story. And then I did it again last year, and I'm putting up little video stories about that on my Facebook page. And I'm writing the next one. I'm trying to find the cover. Death, Dying and Beyond. So at the end of this lockdown, I'm hoping to get it to you, Blaze. That's the aim.
Okay.
Without getting distracted all the time. Hey?
Book number 3. Well done.
Book number 3. So I tend to write one year, launch the next. So that's the rhythm at the moment. So, but that's exciting, and I'm getting a little bit distracted, but once I get into it, it's just flowing. So, and that's a different thing altogether.
Yeah. Awesome. Maybe if we do open mic next month, you can read from.
I can read the introduction. That'd be all right.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you. Ian Hibbert, have you got your new book there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you like me to read something?
If you can, yes, that would be lovely.
Okay,
Do you want to show us the front cover?
Yeah, I'll just get it. Hang on.
Yep. Anyone else? Peter. Hurrah. Hurrah, is that how you say your first? Hi.
Hi.
You want to read something?
Look, I really just came along to listen tonight. It's
That's
very,
cool.
very interesting to hear everybody's work.
Okay.
But yeah, let's hear from Anne next. All good.
Good. All right. Oh, Ian, sorry, I missed that. Can you hold it up again?
Oh, here we are. Hang on, right.
So Angels Weep. So, Ian has recently published a poetry book. So yeah, if you want to read one of them, that would be great.
I will. Be with me. It's all new to me. I'll read the first one. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
It's called Angels Weep. Two honest people seeking true love, wanting to belong to another with love as strong. And when they found each other, loving without caring the cost, my all for you and your all for me, together for all eternity. But when we love, each other's joy we seek, and angels weep to see such love, so pure and free, love so gentle and so strong. And angels weep for joy and sorrow, the sorrow that they cannot become human to experience love like this. That's the first poem in the book.
Great.
And can I read one more?
Of course. Yeah.
I wrote this a couple of days ago. A little bit out there. It's called Night Dreamers. And the people of the world are dreaming tonight, asleep in their beds. Some of us are awake, listening to the voices in the night, telling us what they know and feel. Sorry about that. And for a while, just hold it a second. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I'm very sorry.
Okay, Ian, I think we've lost, I think you've
lost everything. Yeah.
I don't know. Here, it might be my internet, I don't know. Is everyone there?
Can you hear me?
All good.
Yes.
We're all back again?
Yes. Yep.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Right. So I'll finish the poem. And for a while, heaven and earth interweave. The divine road opens for us to travel to worlds out there. And I'll tread the pathways among the stars, through the velvet night, into the landscapes of my soul. Love will be my guide, following the light, to that happy place where I'm just crazy enough to believe that there are answers for everything. And all too soon it draws to a close, and we must seek it again tomorrow.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing. There you go. Ian, you've had your first reading.
Okay, thanks.
All right. That's everyone now that I had on my list, and I think everyone's had a turn at reading now, so that's fantastic. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
And pretty much within time as well, which is fantastic. I don't know about anyone else, but it's very different, isn't it, when you're like at a desk or something in a chair. I feel like I get very wriggly quickly. I don't know about anyone else. But I doubt we will be out of lockdown this time next month. So I probably will run it via Zoom again. So just watch out for the link if you want to come. And again, if you want to read, email me beforehand, just so I have a bit of an idea. Obviously, it was okay tonight. We didn't have too many people, so we could fit everyone in. But yeah, and don't forget, hi, thanks, Shell, for reminding me. We don't actually have any activities coming up at Busybird. But what was I going to say? Yes, there is. Oh, actually, there is our meetup on the first Wednesday of September. If anyone wants to come to that, that is more discussion around different aspects of writing and publishing, and it just goes for 1 hour. And I share those details on Facebook and Meetup. I did forget about Meetup today, so I apologise anyone if they were looking out for me on Meetup today. And we're not really running any workshops at the moment, but business is as normal, even though we are technically closed. It's just Kev and myself in the studio. And we're actually quite busy. I think people have been writing in lockdown, like Michelle, and taking advantage of it. And actually, I actually printed up my own novel this week, and I'm going to be sending that out too. Yeah, it's exciting. It's only taken me 19 years to write my novel. But I did get distracted and wrote 3 or 4 books in between. So
Wow.
I'm excited to actually have my first novel ready for other readers to look at. It hasn't been edited yet, so there's still a bit of work to go. But, you know, it's all just, you know, we keep chipping away at our little projects. And I love hearing everyone's different. Wasn't everyone's stuff so different? There was nothing really very similar. It was really quite an eclectic mix of stuff tonight. So it was actually really interesting. Thank you all so much for coming and sharing it, for being brave enough to share it. But also, I really appreciate how respectful everyone was of each other. Because, you know, for some people, this is quite a scary thing to do. Some people have done it lots of times, but some people have never done it. So even though we're not in the room together, I don't think it's any less scary for people. So I really appreciate that everyone was respectful of each other. Now, don't forget that this is going to be online. We do share the link on Facebook. But if you're not on Facebook, just email me to remind me at blaze@busybird.com.au, and I will be able to send you the link. It will be up on YouTube, so you could actually Google it, you know, if you wanted to. If you just put Busybird Open Mic Night 72, you'll find it. Actually, if you want to follow our YouTube page, that would be good too. It's just Busybird. But also, if you don't want yourself, your own reading to be up on this YouTube session, just let me know. You can either tell me here privately if you want to, or email me. If you could do that by the end of the week, because I will be editing it by the end of the week. And hopefully we can have this up on maybe Monday onto YouTube. Okay? Any questions?
All good.
Thank you. Yes.
Great.
Thank
Good to see you all.
Thank you for organising it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Much
So this is. You're welcome. It's, you know, been a bit of an experience for us all, and each time we do it. Oh, there's Pamela. Hi, Pamela.
Hi, Pamela.
So yes, so obviously we